The headline of the day: Israel strike Iran. In an unprecedented escalation, the Middle East today stands on the edge of a regional war. At dawn on Friday, June 13, 2025, the Israeli military launched what it dubbed Operation Rising Line, a coordinated aerial strike across Iranian territory targeting nuclear sites, military command centers, and residential areas. This is the largest assault on Iran since the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s, with over 200 jets, more than 330 precision munitions, and dozens of confirmed casualties among Iran's top military and scientific leadership. Israel's operation has rewritten the region's power map in a matter of hours. Global markets are spiraling. Airspace across the Middle East have shut down, and Iran has responded with drone attacks. And now, with thousands of troops on high alert across borders from Lebanon to Gaza to Iraq, questions multiply. Is this a prelude to full-scale war? What does this mean for nuclear diplomacy, oil prices, and regional stability? Tonight, we unpack this turning point in history, its motives, consequences, and the road ahead. I'm Mona Mosalhi, and this is In Focus. Ahram Online today reported that the Natanz nuclear facility, one of the key Iranian enrichment sites, has suffered an internal radiation leaking following the Israeli bombardments. Iran's Atomic Energy Organization confirmed the leak, saying decontamination is underway, but no external radiation has been detected. This revelation adds to dangerous nuclear dimensions to the crisis, while the IAEA confirmed Fordo and Isfahan were not hit. Natanz has long been at the center of Israeli sabotage campaigns. Now it's not just a strategic loss, it's a radioactive one. The Israeli attack has U.S. denies of involvement. Tehran holds both Tel Aviv and Washington accountable. Rafael Grossi, the head of the UN nuclear watchdog, has offered to visit Iran and mediate. His call for de-escalation and return to dialogue feels almost powerless in the face of today's military calculus. Now, to help us unpack this unfolding crisis, we are joined by Dr. Mohammed Sadiq Ismail, Director of the Arab Center for Political Studies. Good evening to you, sir, and let me here welcome you to In Focus. Let me start with Dr. Ismail. We are seeing images of flattened buildings, burning runways, and stunned Tehran. What is your assessment of the Israeli operation's strategic or real strategic objectives?
Greetings to you and to the dear viewers. I think what is happening now is a major military strike waged by Israel on Iran, targeting nuclear and military facilities, in addition to senior officials in the Revolutionary Guards. I think this has been done with direct coordination with the United States of America, and this was evident by what has been stated by the US President. Donald Trump that he gave Iran 60 days to conclude the negotiations, and with the end of these 60 days, there will be severe sanctions. I think this is the 61st day, and with the coordination between Israel and the US to carry out these strikes, these have been surprising strikes for Iran, and Iran should have been more cautious and more ready. But with the picture we have seen without any reaction or response from Iran, I think this is due to different factors. The first, the strikes has been very surprising for Iran, and the proactive and primitive factor for Israel. Uh, Israel was very deceptive with this strike, using modern technology and the intelligence and the Israeli Mossad to breach the Iranian system, and there was the internal help from inside Iran, as Israel has arms inside Iran. And we're talking about a political war and an intelligence breach. And I wouldn't rule out some kind of a continuation of such operations, and we will might witness more assassinations in the first line officials, in addition to targeting facilities. Regarding the Iranian retaliation or response, I think this we won't see any surprising factor, because Israel has its guard very high, and they stated that they are very ready to any Iranian response. I think that Israel took advantage of the surprise element, and we expect an Iranian response, but in a very variant way. Will they respond directly to Israel to target Tel Aviv, or will they target US interests in the region? We have all the scenarios on the table. As long as there is some kind of military confrontation started by Israel, we expect an Iranian response.
Well, are you calling this a kind of preemptive war rather than a targeted strike? Do you believe Israel crossed a red line in terms of international law and sovereignty?
Definitely, this is a complete breach of the Iranian sovereignty, because when we talk about entering the air perimeter of Iran by Israeli air war plans, this is breaching the Iranian sovereignty. Also, the killing of the first line leaders in Iran by Israel, this is also a complete direct breach of the humanitarian international law and international law. Regarding legal considerations, Israel does not pay a lot of interest to this. Iran is, of course, a sovereign state, then any attack against it is again an attack against a sovereign state and requires a proper response. Third point is the international reaction. We're talking about varying international responses, whether from the United States, which was very comfortable with the Israeli operations, and some of the European states followed in the footsteps, but also other European states condemned the strikes, and others are expressing some concern. Arab states are calling for a political solution for the crisis, and we wouldn't forget that the reason for all of this is what Israel is doing in the Gaza Strip.
Right.
I
Let me here ask you. Now, Iran said Israel deliberately targeted both military leadership and nuclear scientists. Now, how significant is this, or is the loss of figures like General Bagheri and scientist Feridun Abbasi to Iran's deterrence capacity?
I think that Israel targeted both sides. The Iranian scientists in the nuclear field, and also targeted senior military officials, such as the chief of staff of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, in addition to targeting other senior officials. I think that the casualties are massive. We're talking about 200 killed and around 400 injured. Also, the facilities that were targeted were all related to military infrastructure, as Israel waged this massive military operations against Iran. Even in 2024, when there was a military confrontation between Israel and Iran, it was not as the same scale. Israel did not target first line officials. Some talked about even targeting Khamenei now, and maybe the president of Iran can be targeted by Israel. All these scenarios are actually on the table now. Same for Israel. If it wanted to continue the military expansion in Iran, I think this is a historic chance for Israel. All of these scenarios are now available, and we cannot expect what's going to happen whether for Iran or Israel.
Well, it's not the first time that the Iranian president was targeted. Israel says the Natanz facility has been partially destroyed, with reports of internal radioactive contamination now confirmed. What are the regional nuclear and environmental implications, and what responses do you think, or regional responses towards that?
I think regarding the implications of what Israel did with targeting nuclear facilities in addition to military facilities is a massive casualty. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. The military expertise as well. We're talking about years of hard work to build all of these military and nuclear capabilities. Israel to date has destroyed everything at 6 a.m. Of course, massive casualties, whether at the economic level or environmental level.
Right, but I am speaking here about the environmental issue, the contamination it did, and how will responses react towards that?
I think Israel did not calculate this strike from an environmental side. They only targeted the facilities they saw as a threat. Of course, there will be environmental implications because there will be gas leaks and maybe some nuclear clouds that will affect the Iranian air negatively. Of course, there is an environmental dimension that cannot be calculated at the moment. So regarding the emissions of these military destroyed facilities, these can be added to the economic casualties, and there is the Hormuz water passage, which will cause economic casualties. We wouldn't forget that Iran is an energy exporter, whether to Europe or for the entire world. This will affect the oil prices. OPEC said that if there is a deficit, they will increase the production to make up for the Iranian lost production. Of course, there will be a problem from the environmental side, from the military side. Israel carried out this operations, and they meant to target the military and nuclear facilities as well as senior leaders. But this will have environmental and economic implications, and Israel is not interested in any international law, international humanitarian law. The only important goal for Israel is to threaten the Iranian infrastructure and to weaken and undermine the Iranian capabilities.
Right, we have followed the Iranian response that has been so far limited to drone retaliation. Do you expect this to remain a contained conflict, or are we heading towards broader war, perhaps via proxy fronts like Lebanon or Yemen?
I think that this war can be different compared to 2024. It's not a war with its recognized definition, strikes and counter strikes. Israel was targeting to weaken the Iranian infrastructure. The question here is if Iran is able to put back its strength altogether again.
Are we speaking? Are we speaking about an existential war for Iran here?
We're talking about changing the political regime in Iran. It's not an existential war. Iran will not fade by this war, but Benjamin Netanyahu was talking 1 hour ago about this desire changing the political regime in Iran. He talked about the necessity of a non-nuclear Iran with a regular, as a regular state without this government, without this leadership. And this is the red line for Iran. Israel cannot be the one changing the Iranian regime. The United States had a clear goal, which is to launch nuclear talks with Iran and to take away the nuclear capabilities from Iran and prevent it from developing any nuclear program, even if peaceful one. And Iran, both the US and Israel agree on preventing Iran from developing a nuclear program and changing the political regime in Iran. And therefore, the interests meet the interests of the United States of America as as they will succeed to change the map of the region. And the one very big risk to Israel will be eliminated. In the field of the nuclear military industries, this will be in favor of Israel because Israel will be rid of one of the most difficult hardships that always threatened Israel.
Now, the airspace closures and commercial flights disruptions are already affecting global trade and oil routes. Now, how could this crisis reshape energy security landscape in the Gulf and beyond?
Of course, this is a major problem. Talking about security, energy security, Iran as one of the biggest exporters for oil. There is a massive volume of supply that goes from Iran to Europe, in addition to the relations started with Iran, between Iran and different regional countries. There will be a lot of implications due to the lack of Iranian supply and closing the airspace in front of all the shipments. Today, Israel announced the closure of Ben Gurion airport and Iranian airports were targeted. And I think that their air navigation will be severely undermined, in addition to the negative impact this will have on the international trade. We're talking about war between very distant countries because these are not neighboring countries, and they will use their proxies. Of course, we're talking about the Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah, and we cannot, of course, say that Hezbollah will be fully supporting Iran because we're not aware of their capabilities. Now, they lost most of their leaders last year, including Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah and most of his assistants. Of course, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, now Naim Qassem, did not make any statements regarding the attacks. I think this will impact the entire world. Iran is a major economic power, and this is undoubtedly the OPEC states are making up for the lack of Iranian supply, but definitely there will be implications. For instance, the gold prices increased today, the dollar prices are increasing, there will be problems. Of course, there's also the security threat to the Arab Gulf region. Iran has always been a huge threat to the Gulf, and when we talk today about targeting Tehran, this will have a negative impact, even if relatively, on the Gulf.
Now, many world capitals, including Cairo, Riyadh, Doha, Ankara, and Beijing, condemned the strikes. Now, how do you interpret the varied reactions of regional powers and their impact on the future of Iran-Israel tension?
If we start with what some Arab and non-Arab states condemning Israel for targeting these figures and breaching the Iranian sovereignty, I think this is complete breach of international law. If we talk about the international criminal law, the international humanitarian law, all of these are breached, and these were issued in the first place by the United States and the West. Of course, some legislations were passed to preserve the peace and security of the world, and these major powers now are directly breaching these legislations. Inside the Arab world or the Middle East, we need a real stance from the international community. Israel cannot keep breaching the law and assassinating huge figures in Hezbollah in Lebanon and in Syria, targeting certain facilities in Yemen, and today they are targeting major sites in Iran. I think that Israel is completely supported and logistically and politically and military covered by Israel and some of the European states. But we cannot say that these pathways will continue forever. There is no permanent war. There must be respect for the international law that another state might not dare one day that Israel did that so and so, and they were not held accountable. For the Middle East region, I think that security is teetering on the edge. I think that Iran has no longer has anything to lose. They have only one option is to prove its presence as a state, and the political system or to give it up completely and lose the battle politically, military. And I think the results of this will be catastrophic. We're talking about a political alternative system. We're talking about substantial change in the rules inside Iran and political fragility inside Iran. This system in the worst scenario will be completely replaced with a political system that might be affiliated with the United States. So we are now watching the rules of the game completely changing. All the scenarios are on the table. There are different fronts open, and the problem eventually lies in the surprise strategic element that Israel leveraged to undermine Iran. We're waiting to see the Iranian response. The drones strikes is more like a black comedy. A state cannot be targeted with such warplanes and missiles, and they cannot retaliate and respond with drones. If that is the retaliation, if that is the response, this will be the end of the political regime in Iran.
Let me here ask you, sir. Now, US President Trump and Secretary Rubio have distanced the US from this attack, or at least they said they were not involved. But do you believe Israel could have launched this scale of operation without American green lights or intelligence cooperation at least?
Definitely, there was coordination between Israel and the United States. Benjamin Netanyahu said that this operation was planned since last April and he postponed it for several reasons. I think the postponement was for the 60 days terms stated by Trump today. Of course, there is intelligence cooperation between the United States, represented in CIA, and Mossad, represented by Israel, in addition to the security breaches that took place inside Iran. We cannot say that the operation of this scale, destruction of the scale, and casualties of important figures and leaders are only planned by one state. It has to be a group of states, the United States, Israel, and other states to be announced soon. Of course, it's intelligence cooperation, and the success of this operation
Right.
can be affiliated to the coordination between the United States and Israel.
Right. Right. Remains to be seen what will be happening at this upcoming days. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Sadiq Ismail, for your deep insights on this perilous turning point in the Middle East history. And tonight we leave you with the chilling reality: a nuclear facility damaged, top Iranian officials killed, and a volatile region bracing for more. The strikes of Operation Rising Lion may have lasted mere hours, but their fallouts, political and radioactive, may linger for years. As the world watches, one question haunts the horizon: was this the beginning or the breaking point? Until next time, stay safe, stay aware. This is In Focus. Many thanks for watching.